Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm Stéphane Téral. I run my own boutique, TERAL Research. That makes it simple, but I'm a former RHK in Forensics Research and IHS Market. And by the way, I've been in Open RAN since the beginning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do you know when the beginning was with Open RAN? No? 2010. How about that? Oops. Yes, it started with AT&T. Oh, back to AT&T. When their RNC was crippled with the iPhone in 2007. That's how they came up with the idea of looking at that damn RNC and say, let's rip it off, okay? Oh, we did it. Now, let's look at the LTE architecture and let's look at the different components and do the same thing. Then, you know, in China Mobile was already looking at virtualization, actually, of the BBU, the Koreans as well. So it took some time, actually, you know, to get the first RIC design. And I think it was around, I mean, they came up to this in 2012. I don't know if you remember John Donovan, who is no longer at AT&T, when he made, when he was, you know, making his big case with domain to that. What was the purpose? Stop piling up racks. You know, it made no sense. We need better network than that. Meaning, we need more software, less hardware. So virtualization came on board. However, and by the way, I mean, AT&T has been looking at this since the beginning of this century when Dr. Hossein Essambochi was the CTO of NTNT Corporation, which became, you know, through mergers and acquisition, AT&T Inc., as we know today. So things started, you know, way early. But it takes a village and it takes years, you know, to make things happen because this is no simple thing to reinvent the architecture and actually to disaggregate, to rip everything apart and then redo it, but in, you know, in a different manner to have more flexibility, agility in the network. So, to your point, Robert, you were saying, you know, I mean, it started as a, you know, let's let's have cost savings. And yes, we heard that, you know, in 2018, 2019, 2020 during the pandemic. But the fact is, you know, it was, part of it is true because I just mentioned piling up racks, you know, to evolve the network was a very costly experience. But then, you know, the other part of the equation was more flexibility. So, I mean, do you see that as well? I mean, you said cost saving.
Yeah, my point partly was that that agenda has changed a little bit, and also that we're not separate from these other mega trends in the industry. You know, the silicon, the whole move to cloud computing in general, that's an absolutely enormous wave that continues to reverberate, you know, through multiple industries. So that's already happening. I mean, as efforts to cut cost in general, but then that's tied to the desire to, increasing desire to automate because the cost of labor and the skill shortage is a problem for us. We know many of us in industry are getting a little older. and really the new skills in demand are software skills and their skills of living in the cloud and so on. So, and those are in short supply, let alone, you know, areas like security and testing and so on. So all these things they're all happening at the same time. And I think that what operators are looking for from Open RAN is sort of, it's weaved a little bit left, a little bit right. It started out, hey, we can build networks, you know, 30% cheaper. I mean, Rakuten showed you could do that, but that's only a problem if you're building out new infrastructure. It's not a problem if your major issue is truck rolls to existing infrastructure. That's a different problem to solve. So now it's interesting to see some of this language coming back in around customer experience. And that, I think, is where the whole Open RAN community still has a little bit of an obstacle to overcome. It's one thing to say, hey, we can do what you currently do as well, and you know as well as I do that the whole question of parity has been a big, big concern. Yes. Hey, this doesn't work as well as even as 4G, so why would we look at it? But I think the challenge that we have in Open RAN is to say, well, here are some things you can do with an Open RAN that you just can't do with a conventional RAN. And some of that relates to cloud computing, and some of it relates to, you know, procurement and innovation cycles. Hey, we can change every year. We can upgrade when there's new silicon, not when we have to depreciate after a 7-8 year cycle. So those are the things that are part of the second wave. What will customers see that's any different? And again, you see an echo of this played out in 5G SA right now, okay? Which is people didn't know, hey, 5G isn't actually giving me anything better that I'm going to spend more money on, and now we have the same thing played out in 5G SA. Well, what difference will customers see? So I think that there is some obvious value in the energy side of things, because that is something that every customer, many customers certainly have a concern about, just as they are, we're all thinking about our own personal CO2 footprint and so on. So that is a kind of soft factor in the process. But I think the fun stuff will start when Open RAN networks can do something that conventional networks just can't do, and that customers see that difference. And that I think, it might be a small thing, but that is really, really so important, I think, for all the work that we're doing in this area, over and above the stuff that makes it all work and work well together, and makes it possible. Making it do something amazing is still exciting.
But you mentioned 5G SA, and the way I see it is that we did so great by designing the EPC, Evolved Packet Core. Now, that is more and more virtual. Actually, 80% of deployment today are virtual EPC, that we don't need actually the 5G core. I mean, let's face it, we did such a great job, I mean, you are piling so much capacity on that VEPC, that it removed the need for 5G SA in the first place. But let's not, let's be serious. 5G SA will come. It's just, a question of time. It's just not the good timing right now. But anyway, let's go back to Open RAN with the ecosystem. So the ecosystem is mushrooming. But when an ecosystem mushrooms, you have casualties. So we have a long list of casualties, and by the way, the report, we published our update, second update of the year during the night, because my team is in California. Yeah, we have, and Katja and Andreas, have been following this, So 2020, we had, that, 2021, 2022, 3, 2024. Oops, we have 2 bankruptcies, Casa System, Airspan. We have stuff, from RFS world, that, Nokia, that went to Enfenol last year. But then, guess what? Comscope, which, by the way, acquired the IP of Fluido in 2020. Now, that stuff went to Enfenol as well. But anyway, so you say we need, layer 1 accelerator, very good, I'm thinking Intel. Intel, big drop of $2.8 billion in NEX, N-E-X, which is the last wheel of the cart. Now, and we can look at our website, what's next for NEX? And we said not that much, actually. In the meantime, we need more, layer 1 accelerator. So how are we going to solve this, if Intel goes down?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. But end of the day, an Open RAN kind of an ecosystem needs, or Open RAN kind of a technology needs an ecosystem. Oh, yeah. But how does an ecosystem survive? An ecosystem survives because somebody else has to invest in that ecosystem, right? And so so far, the investments around Open RAN has been very much, let me put it in the right word, maybe conservative. So the investment has been on safe bets. Okay, this has been working for me for years. Maybe I should continue to invest there. There has been some operators would have taken a riskier route, but that has been very far and less. So if you really want an ecosystem, and these companies who are going bankrupt, or we need other companies to join the bandwagon, then obviously there needs to be a little more investments towards the ecosystems. Now, but it's end of the day, it's the operator's prerogative on where they want to invest in it. The public sector has jumped in, at least has been putting in a lot of impulse in terms of innovation there and money.
Yes, and in fact, the spending on testing, validation and certification, labs and all that stuff is twice as much the Open RAN market.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is whatever the ecosystem has existed today is primarily because of that. Yes. That has to now change towards a more prime time investments from the operators in actually getting the RAN out with diverse vendor ecosystems, with diverse models, and only then can really this whole idea of having layer 1 accelerators or even new baseband providers, new kind of radios, if these have to come up, more sustainable radios, then we need to have some diversity in prime time, right? And as of today, the Open RAN ecosystem, the smaller players are primarily surviving because of aerospace, defense, private networks. And that's not a very big market. If you compare, okay, it's a big market, but you compare a telco's Open RAN deployments and a private network deployment, it's nowhere comparable, right? But so the survival of the ecosystem today is not because of the telcos. Survival of the ecosystem today is because of the outside the telecom industry. They are supporting Open RAN. Smaller companies are surviving because of that, not because of the telcos.
But you know,
that has to change.
Yeah, and let's not forget what Andreas said, and this is very true. It's not by ripping off everything apart and replacing it with Open RAN that you're going to create a bigger market. No, actually, Open RAN is eating the RAN pie. The RAN market is going down. We don't see, because this is the first time, in cellular industry that we have nothing actually in the horizon that can, make a takeoff again. 6G is far out. And in fact, we'll call, all the stuff we haven't delivered in 5G will be called 6G. So,
well, we already created 3 different 5Gs. We just give them different release numbers. So.
But having said that, they are actually great innovation. I'm saying all that stuff, and I'm not making it up. I'm telling you, the observation. I'm an analyst like you, Robert. We do that on a daily basis. There is a lot going on, actually, when it comes to innovation, like new waveforms. We already had new waveforms proposed for 5G. They were ditched. Okay, let's stay with, in the 4G domain, the 5G we have today, well, they're just using the same waveform. And you mentioned private wireless network. Well, you know that Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 are using the same waveform as well, meaning that if you don't need the mobility aspect, forget about cellular in enterprise. So, so what do you see, as for the Open RAN opportunity there, if you have Wi-Fi 6 that is doing a better job?
Yeah, of course, and that's obviously every technology will have competition. And so the 5G ecosystem needs to actually come up with it, come up with newer value proposition for the enterprises. But what do we see, at least in the large critical national infrastructure, public safety, ports, airports, warehouses, logistics, we definitely see a lot of 5G adoption. And also with that, at least in certain infrastructure, national infrastructure, Open RAN seems to be a very useful way to deploy it because of its disaggregated nature and the fact that you can actually have commodity hardware and more easier management is useful. But as I said, these are still very small when compared to the large RAN market of the telcos itself. And also there would be Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7. There would be also the fact that 5G, is it actually going to replace manufacturing's EtherCAT or Profinet? No way. So it cannot really replace any manufacturing internet or manufacturing connectivity. So there will have to coexist. So different connectivity schemes will coexist. There is also a fact that a lot of OT technologies are coming inside the network. So for example, Capgemini was part of a consortium that we recently formed called Margo, which is about industrial automation, about having edge devices inside the network doing industrial automation. We are standardizing that. And the whole idea of standardizing it actually kind of, at least I look at it, is based on what telecom industries were doing. In a certain way, because we are looking at APIs, we are looking at programmability of devices, we are looking at programmability of the network. So I think there are industries which are moving relatively faster, then there are certain industries which are moving relatively slower, but innovation is happening in some ways.
Absolutely. And the good thing to be in Open RAN is that this is pretty much the only segment of the telecom equipment market that is going up. The rest is down right now, and some of the segments are way down, double-digit sales decline. So RAN was flattish last year. Now it's getting a little bump. Thank you, AT&T. You know, waiting for the other guys. Who's next? Vodafone. But hey, Robert, how come you forgot the system integrators?
Yeah. Well, I was slightly running ahead of time. I did have a comment I wanted to make, which it's interesting and it's a fair point. When we first started looking at when OpenRAN started to kind of get more attention about 4 years ago, it looked like the obvious thing everyone was concerned about then was systems integration. They said, well, okay, you're going to break the pieces apart, but I mean, I'm not going to put them back together again. You know, and some operators step forward and say, yeah, we absolutely want to be the experts in this. So
well, Vodafone.
Yeah, absolutely. Rakuten, they said, you know, we understand the role. We're going to be a systems integrator. But everybody else said, well, this is still a gap. And part of what we thought would happen is that systems integrators would step right up there very quickly and say, this is our business. We know how to do systems integration. That isn't what we saw. We didn't see that. Now, that's not to say there aren't systems integrators, Capgemini and others, representing we have good skills that we can do in this. What we didn't see was operators awarding, please go build our Open RAN.
Oh, it's because actually they didn't say anything. Like Fujitsu doing a lot of SI work at Dish, nobody knows about it, right? So this is Fujitsu, but NEC in Telefonica, for example, then NEC and Fujitsu at NTT Docomo, and that's why you have that NEC, NTT Docomo, Orex, SAI, because NEC acquired Aspire, so they brought, you know, SI skills, so that's going to give competition to Shamik, right?
You know, I think I was just provoking Robert, so was not, system integrators are there, and you rightly know, I mean, in Capgemini we are doing a lot of Open RAN work, but nobody knows about it, because nobody wants to, you know, really tell that there's a system integrator there, which is okay in a way. But at the same time, I think the ability of the operator to trust a system integrator with a full prime integration for Open RAN is still not there.
No, that's right.
So it's eventually it's an ecosystem where the equipment provider, a system integrator, a hyperscaler, or a cloud company will come together, and that group is the system integrator.
Hey, you say it's still not there. Okay, anyone from i14y here in the room? Let's ask. You know, we have Rakuten Symphony doing the job here in Germany.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there are examples and great examples, but then there are, I would say, how many prime system integrators are actually leading the full prime deployment? That's rare. That's rare. It's more of a group of companies coming together and doing the stuff, which in my opinion is a good start. It's a good start.
Look, I mean, part of all of this is seeing what was one market and simply a switch out of vendor A for vendor B into being lots of different ways to go about doing this. And that's part of what the industry is still figuring out. It isn't just, I'm going to choose this vendor or that vendor. And I'm going to build a RAN. I'm going to build a RAN with two vendors. That's okay. That we know how to do that. That's what we've been doing for the best part of 30 years. That's why this is all different. Because if that's all it was, we know what that model looks like. That model looks like, here's a new vendor coming into the market that's promising 20% cheaper than everybody else at 90% of the functionality.
Well, this is Huawei you're talking about here. It's not Open RAN. So.
Well, Matt, that's my point. That the goal of Open RAN can't just be to, well, let's do in the market what Huawei did in the market. And then we just become another column in the procurement process. It has to be a change in structure. It has to be, look, you can be an SI if you have the size and scale and expertise and the people to want to do that, or you can be a tier 3 operator and you want something that you know is going to not have long global supply chains that are going to be interrupted by all kinds of stuff going on around the world. So and everything in between, and whether that's system integration, whether it's your radio units, whether it's where you choose your cloud software and hardware from. Many more options, and so again, the flip side of that is, and this is I think something telcos are still internalizing to some degree. We don't yet see enough evidence it's changing. Is I'm going to have to make more individual purchase decisions instead of the blockbuster 8-year deal, you know, with an 8-figure sum on it. What I'm going to do, because it's better for my business. I'm
sorry to interrupt you, but we have to wrap up. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you found it very interesting and entertaining. So. Big round of applause.
Thank you.